Juggling motherhood and modern day life can be stressful and relentless, but it doesn't need to be this way. The Joy of Being podcast is the answer to maternal mental health, bringing sustainable relief and calm to hardworking mums everywhere so that you, your family and work can thrive. My name is Marina Pearson and I'm your host, transformational coach and mum who loves to interview business owners, transformational professionals and creatives to have insightful conversations about what it takes to really live a life that is thriving, fulfilling and full of joy. So in the next coming weeks, I have decided to launch a coronavirus series in which I'll be bringing on amazing guests to talk about these uncertain times and how even in uncertainty, there can be an amazing opportunity for us to thrive. Now, that may sound weird, especially if you're seeing markets tumble, especially if you've got people around you that are suffering because of the virus, and maybe even if because you are scared of your business coming to a halt. Whatever it is, the fears that you have and the panic that you may be feeling, then this series is going to really help with that. I felt really compelled to bring this into my awareness, but also into the awareness of you, the listener. So with that in mind, I'm super excited to be launching this series and for us to create a different conversation to the one that's being had in the media. Not to say that this isn't important, not to say that we're not entering into difficult times, but to say that there is and there are other ways of viewing it other than the panic and the fear that's being brought to the table. So if you are feeling that and you are being affected by the coronavirus through your business, through your finances, through your health, then these are going to be incredible conversations to be tuning into. And if you know of anybody in that situation, then please do share the episodes with them. Enjoy. And on today's show, I have the beautiful Claire Balkind. I reached out to Claire because she is the founder of the amazing Facebook group, Family Lockdown Tips and Ideas. She decided to set it up on a whim a week ago, and literally it went from 0 to 350,000 within a week. She is also a teacher, and I just thought, well, why not bring her on to see if we could talk about tips and ideas about how to keep our kids sane and what kind of things that we can do with them and ideas that they can come up with so that they can entertain themselves during this lockdown period. During our conversation, we talked about rhythms, we talked about how kids have their own wisdom, we talked about how as parents, we don't need to worry about whether or not we're going to cope because we're built to cope and our kids are built to cope. And we talked about how they have a resilience that goes far beyond what we could comprehend. So if you are tearing your hair out, if you are living in fear of whether or not you're going to cope with these lockdowns or are already in lockdown and tearing your hair out, then this is going to be an amazing episode for you. Enjoy. So welcome everybody to another coronavirus series special. And on today's show, I have the beautiful Claire. Is it Balkind?
I'll take any. Balkind is how we say it. Yeah.
And then, I reached out to Claire because I got just thrown into this group, Family Lockdown Tips and Ideas on Facebook. And it was remarkable because I joined and there was like 30,000 of us already. And then literally a week later, and we're talking about a week later, it's about 150,000 already.
Yes, and it's grown since then. I think at the moment it's around 350,000 people have now joined the revolution. So which is how I'm referring to it in my head. The good kind of revolution, not the bad kind of revolution, the one that people want to be part of.
Amazing to see, and I just love the fact that it wasn't even it was just this small idea you had. You decided to do it, and boom! You just never know, right? You just never know.
No, and I couldn't have predicted quite what would happen. I mean, the group was originally set up for my own benefit because I was worried about what I might do with my own children if I was in the house more than normal, because I like to be busy and I like to be out and about. And I set the group up really as an opportunity to share and collaborate ideas with friends and anyone who might want to join, on a whim. And it turns out that my concerns reflected the concerns of maybe lots of other people at exactly the same time. I think it's grown the way that it has simply because, I tapped into something that was relevant to me, but because of the global situation, it's relevant to sort of hundreds of thousands of other people as well. And it's great that it's working out the way that it is, because on a personal level, I mean, my parenting has improved and got better as a result of what I've seen. So yeah, the growth hopefully means that, hundreds of thousands possibly of families are having a slightly better time with it than they would be without it.
I joked about this, but in essence, I think it really speaks to that, which is, the fear wasn't around the coronavirus. It was about spending this much time with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
what am I going to do to keep them entertained?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's been a common thing that's been posted on the group. Actually, we haven't been able to pass all those posts because there are just so many of them. Parents saying, how do I keep my kids entertained? How do I keep my 2-year-old and my 7-year-old entertained that have such a big age gap, and they need different types of stimuli and they need different activities at different kinds of the day. We're also really aware that, a lot of parents are working, well, they still need to work. So they're working from home, yet they have their children around them. And that makes, organizing things for their children to do even more challenging. Hopefully some of the ideas will, help people to at least manufacture some sort of schedule where they can sort of set that up. There are just so many far-reaching ideas. I have to say, I didn't even realize that there was so much out there which has been shared on the group so far. But it is really tricky. And I think, interestingly, on a parenting level, we parent best when we feel happy and confident and capable and empowered. And we parent not so well when we're sort of worried and concerned and stressed. I think that's certainly my own experience. And I think one of the really big difficulties for parents is, in addition to knowing what to do, is knowing how to approach the feelings and the uncertainty and the anxiety that comes with what the task is, like the enormity of it. And when I've been in that situation before myself, I've always sort of planned to, this is why the group is there, but sort of, with knowledge comes power. So, upskilling myself, getting things, preparing things, resourcing, and so on. So, that's our little strategy.
Well, I really resonate with that, with the whole parenting thing. And, it reminds me of a time when, so many times, but what comes to mind is this moment when I was in the Madrid train station. Mm-hmm. And I was there with my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time. And we were going off on a train to go and see our son in Valencia. We'd just come back from a trip. And he was like, I'm off. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I'm sitting there scrolling through Facebook. And then I'm like, oh, I think I should go. I think I'm a little bit late. Anyway, I get to where I need to go to hand in my through to security, and I'm like, "Where's my ticket? Where's my ticket? Oh God, I can't find my ticket!" And I just went into this massive place of stress. And I called him and I said, "Where are the tickets?" And he's like, "I don't know. I sent it to your phone. You don't." And I was like, "I don't know where my ticket is." And so in the end, I missed the train. In the end, I was burst into tears because I was missing the train and I couldn't actually go and see my son, who I hadn't seen for about 10 days. And then I walk into the train station ticket booth and I say, "Okay, can you give me another ticket?" And as I calmed down, I just pressed on my mobile and there was the ticket right in front of me all of that time. But because I have a stress head on, it was just really difficult to see. And we're not built to thrive in that sort of environment. We're built for reality. We're built to be grounded and have our common sense and use that and let that guide us. So I love what you're sharing, because in actual fact, it's so true. And the mental well-being of everybody that's in this is such a key component to how we're going to get through this, especially in terms of our kids as well. So what are some of the things that you've seen that have really helped? So if mum's sitting here going, "Oh, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with my child," what are some of the ideas that you have?
Sure. And I just wanted to say about your story just then, I can think of so many situations that I found myself in, not quite the same, but where I've had a similar response. And I completely understand.
It's quite universal, actually, Claire. I don't think it's it's a human thing. So
it's very much a human thing. And I think what I would say, whilst the group does have some ideas, and I will share some, I've got a list in front of me of my top ones that I will share now. But what I would say is that if you can park some of the feelings about what you might be worried about with your kids at home, the time and the activities, actually, people often have the answers in them and in front of them without realizing. So I would say that a lot of parents out there that might be worried probably actually already have a ton of skills and a ton of things that they just need to harness. But anyway, there's lots of different ideas that have been posted, some which I have to say I would never have considered as something that I would do with my children. I wouldn't have known it was out there. And one of the big challenges I think of this time is the issue of screens. And a lot of posts initially that we discussed in the group were relating to how do I get my child to do activities that are not screen time. And I just wanted to say, as a sort of starting point, I'm totally not in favour of putting your children in front of screens all the time, but there are some great things that you can do online with your children. And there have been so many apps that have been posted which actually encourage learning. So I would say scheduling screen time allows parents to maybe relax a little bit. It's okay. And some of the things I would share is that imagine showing your child on a computer the live screening of an opera or the live screening of Wind in the Willows, a sort of a performance, because they don't have an audience, so they're turning it online. For me as a teacher, I love the idea of exploring museums, and lots of museums have been putting their tours of the museums virtually, so you can go and tour. I think it's now about 35 worldwide museums online, which would be an amazing way to spend some time with your children in front of a computer. I've also seen, people in space. NASA have posted lots of things, space astronauts reading stories to children online. There are tons of apps for reading, and most of them now, in light of this crisis, have made their subscriptions free. In fact, I wouldn't pay for any subscriptions at the moment because there are so many free ones. There are lots in the UK that we've been using. Twinkle is a very well publicised one, which is used primarily by teachers. They've made all of their resources totally available for free. People are loving that. So there's lots of things online that I would say, but it is also an opportunity to do things at home which you wouldn't normally do. And I'm absolutely loving how parents are posting ideas of their children kind of pitching in with ordinary activities but making them quite fun, whether it's to do with washing or chores or earning little bits of pocket money, going on sort of scavenger hunts to find things that have been lost for ages. In fact, one mum posted that she hid things around the house and then just told the children to go and find them, and then they got a surprise or a treat, and that got them physical, it got them running around, and she had a cup of tea. So things like that are great. We printed out on the group, if you go to the photos section, there's lots of images and free printables and all sorts of things you can access visually what we've been doing. But I printed off a visual, basically a poster that somebody had posted about sign language, and it basically had the alphabet and sign language, and I just casually put it on my fridge. And I came into the kitchen yesterday and my 5-year-old was busy standing there trying to work out how to do all the different letters, and we discussed how by the end of the week she should be able to spell out her name in sign language. And there was no real effort put into that, but it just created this kind of extra dimension, which I thought was really, really cool. There are lots.
Our kids have so much wisdom, I see Leo, if I just leave him to his own devices, and I do usually do that in the mornings. It's kind of like free play for him. He just comes up with all sorts of ideas on his own. Mm-hmm. And he's taking out all of his old toys and he never, ever, ever, ever plays with like this old train track. Like I've never seen him play with that. And he's taking it I'm like, oh my God, I've been really surprised and been going, oh my God, that's amazing. So he's getting out all his old toys, using them because of course he's kind of like just he's 5 as well. So yeah.
I think that's lovely. And actually, there have been quite a few posts, and I have to say I do agree with this on a personal level, that this time at home or this time, isolated away from school is actually not an opportunity to necessarily create a school environment in your home. It's to kind of cherry pick the bits from school that will benefit your children, but also playing and learning to play well and learning through play is something that we're often criticized for in education systems now, globally. We don't do enough of it, and it's how children learn to self-regulate. It's how they learn to be independent. It's how they learn to do all sorts of kind of independent learning skills about making decisions and self-directing their questions. And it's something that I've done a lot of professionally as it happens. So I do believe that this is sort of an opportunity to do a bit of unschooling, to let children have that free rein, because they might find it difficult to begin with, but I've certainly seen some super, like you were saying with your son Leo, I've seen some really creative little things that my kids have done. My 1.5-year-old, I found her sort of running around the landing, and I couldn't work out what she was doing. And she just found a toy car and she decided to take it for a trip in and out of all of the bedrooms. And I thought, well, we've never talked about this. We've never done this, but she's clearly got her own little journey going on in her head. So I think it is an opportunity to maybe teach children about how to be sort of enjoy their own company and to maybe be a little bit bored, because from everything that I've read, and I'm not much of I'm not an evangelical parent about anything really, but I do think that being bored is an important skill. And sometimes we celebrate boredness in our house. We go, yay, I'm bored now. Not necessarily the grown-ups, but the children. And I'd like to see really if we teach our kids that boredom's okay and that they can sort of do their own thing, we're also buying a bit back for our own sanity and our mental health, I think. Well, certainly that would be the case. That would be the case for me if my children decided to take themselves off and play on their own for a little bit. Yeah.
But it's, that there's so much on what you share is making sense, because even as adults, if you had all your time structured all of the time, you wouldn't know what to do with yourself, because you wouldn't be used to actually knowing like what you're being drawn to. Because I see kids having their own wisdom and their own internal GPS system, and the way in which they can actually entertain themselves is also born of that creativity that you're speaking about. Mm-hmm. So while I also think that there is room for both, there's room for structure and there's also room for just complete and utter, you do what you feel was right, but you're not having, with certain restrictions, like maybe saying, no TV. So if you're not going to use the TV, what else can you do? Mm-hmm. And then they have to come up with something on their own. And it's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, okay. Well, you just sit there and think about it. I'm going off to make
Well, there is quite a lot written about, or there's certainly been quite a lot of stuff said sort of in the last year or so about, the rise in children's mental health and the relationship between, longer hours in school and parents needing to work more, and all those sorts of factors about basically controlling children's lives so that things can get done. And I was thinking about this last night, and whilst there's not very many positives that can realistically be drawn from what's going on, globally, this is absolutely a crisis. There is a degree in some way that actually this could be a very positive pause for us all to kind of reflect a little bit and to slow down and to look at what's important, and for our kids to realize that, realize how busy they might be, and do just that, let creativity flow a little bit, which is what's come out in lots of the posts on the group, parents posting how their kids have built these amazing forts out of cardboard and bunting and sheets and towels, and they've decorated it. And this, I didn't know they were going to do that, but look what they've done, or building the highest tower, or having competitions. So you're right. I think there's a lot of child generated content. Actually, their parents that happen to be posting it, but obviously the kids are kind of coming up with the ideas in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I've just had Leo come to me, and he's drawn me told him to colour in his superhero, but he's just said, Mummy, I'm going to go and play in my room now. He never plays in his room. I'm like,
this is great for you.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I had to challenge the notion that I had to be the one to kind of create his day, and that's what was freaking me out. Was, hang on, like, I'm going to have to, how I'm going to do with my son, as if I'm the one in control of that. Like, there was an essence part of this which was just completely one-sided, to say, what the hell am I going to do with my child, versus actually going, well, what are we going to do together as a team? And it was, and I noticed that, and I'm like, hang on a second, it's not my responsibility, actually. There is a responsibility for both of us, but not just me. And that's kind of when I saw it, and I was like, oh, actually, it's not as hard as I thought it would be. And there have been some moments, but yeah. So what other great things have you seen that have really helped?
Oh gosh. Well, I think one of the things I'm loving, like I'm totally loving because I'm doing it myself, probably not as much as I should, is all the sort of physical exercise suggestions that people have. And I have to say, I'm one of those people who doesn't have time to exercise a lot. That's how I like to phrase it. It's not helped by my chocolate consumption, but there we go. We've had loads and loads of personal trainers and dancers, and even like online ballet tutorials being posted on the group. We've got live videos, many suggestions for things on YouTube that people can watch. For example, the other day I did some yoga with my girls in the living room. We moved the tables away and created a little space and watched cosmic yoga on YouTube, on the TV. And it was so relaxing. It was really nice. But it's child-based. So, I was able to do it, and that made me feel good. We've also got, I mean, there's lots of kids dance videos that are going down, but what's been amazing, and I think this is one of the big kind of behavioral aspects of being at home, is that children need to be active. How do you make that happen? So I would really encourage parents to think about how they can do that without having to like exhaust themselves. So we're loving all the sort of PE exercises and challenges that all the personal trainers and exercise people are posting. And I think related to that, the other thing that children need a lot of, which isn't really helpful in self-isolation, is actually, fresh air and going outside. It's important for all of us to have that, for our well-being, but particularly for children. And you can see them, their behavior improve, and their cheeks go all rosy when they are, in the fresh air outside. And I totally realize that is not possible for everybody, because I live in a house, and we do have a garden, and I realize not everyone does, but even, opening the door, we open the doors in our living room. We've got some doors that lead on to the back garden, and we opened the doors yesterday, and the fresh air came in, and it was just like, oh yeah, we can just do that. So I think going outside as much as possible, having fresh air. We've done some great scavenger hunts in the garden. We did a bug exercise. We have collected things. We're going to, my garden is quite small and quite overgrown, so don't think we live in we've got fields to access. We really don't, but we did find some exciting things and sort of leaves that are sticky that my daughter loves sticking to everyone. So yeah, going outside has been really great. And there are some really lovely printables on the group where you can tick things off that you have found. In fact, that's also inside as well. We've got quite a few, can you find this in your house? Can you find that in your house? And there was a lovely post quite early on, actually by a friend of mine, who set a colour challenge for her children and said, right, I want you to go around the house and find 20 things that are red. And so off they went, and then they came back and put them on the table, and she took a photo. And then she said, right, I now want you to go and find 20 things that are yellow, and they had to do the same thing. And then she took a photo, and it looked lovely. I really actually hope on reflection she asked her children to put those things all back where they found them at the end of it. But that was a really simple thing that worked really well. We do have quite a lot of routines. You were mentioning about routine and deciding who's going to do what. We didn't have a routine on Monday. We had a little bit of a routine on Tuesday where we said, we're going to do this and this and this. And actually, it was quite difficult. We had a bit of, slight bad behavior yesterday because I think my daughter really wanted to have a routine. Even if we didn't stick to it rigidly, it's nice. It's reassuring to know that it's there. So I actually just printed off. I'm a teacher. I should make up my own one, but I saw such a good one on the group. I just printed that off and stuck it on the fridge, as I do. And it's got images next to the words. So my daughter doesn't have to read all of them because she's only 5. She can look at the picture and say, breakfast, an egg, excellent, I want an egg today. Or, look, a paintbrush, it's time for arts and crafts. And it's been very helpful to have that there. So even like practical things have been good. She has then said, I've got to go and do my arts and crafts now. It's arts and crafts time. And I thought, she feels in control. So I'd say that's a really big tip for me. Is
that would be amazing if we could somehow have that in the notes. Is that possible?
I can share that with you or similar. I can find a copy for sure.
Yeah, I think I want one for myself, actually.
Absolutely.
Yes, please. Yeah, so I love that. I love the fact that that can inspire their own sense of direction. Because we forget, right? They can't read necessarily at this age.
No, that's true. That's true. In fact, that's been a big challenge because a lot of the activities. My daughter's doing really well with her reading, which is great. But a lot of the activities do require a certain basic level of skill that I know a lot of children don't have. And so what I've found quite helpful is looking through the photos on the group and seeing some suggestions that aren't so, wordy or rooted in doing things. In fact, my daughter said to me when we were talking about the schedule, she said, Mum, do we have to do maths? And she literally sounded like I did when I was 16 because I hate it. And I said, you know what, we probably don't have to do maths, but we will have to do something else. It's easy to forget how when you are little and you are at school and you are learning, you do have things that you don't like and you do have things that you are worried about and that you don't feel so confident about. And in a way, I thought about this on 2 levels. I thought, right, do I say, okay, we're not at school, no maths, no problem? Or do I say, well, hey, just because we're not at school doesn't mean we can stop doing our maths, but maybe we can do it in a different way. Maybe we can, I don't know, count how many biscuits Daddy has eaten today or something to encourage that skill. So the group has definitely given me some ideas on how to sort of do school-based subjects, but in slightly more creative ways. One mum posted a fantastic idea where she gave her children some money, and I'm talking like pennies, and she is running a tuck shop when it's snack time in her house, and she has labelled the things that they are allowed to have for snacks. They have a certain amount of money each day, and then they have to come to her and pay for their snacks, and they have to be able to work out how to add up 10 pence, 1 pence, whatever, to the appropriate snack level. I thought, that's great. They're getting a snack, they're doing maths, and everyone wins. So, little simple things like that, which I think that we just need that inspiration. We need to be reminded. I'm a teacher and I constantly need reminding what I'm doing. So any way of sort of flagging that up is always, I think it's always very helpful, I think. Yeah.
It is helpful because, I think we can all come up with great creative ideas that will work for us, but it's when it's done for you in a way that's like, that resonates for you. Oh yeah, that really, because there are so many ways in which you could do this. I think for every individual family, every individual child, there are certain things that will resonate for me that for other parents, it wouldn't resonate for them. And so it's a question through sifting of actually, oh yeah, that's something that I think would actually work for us, versus it having to be that so that it actually works.
So it's actually a really interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it this way, but I suppose, you know, when I'm in teaching, if I teach a lesson on a particular topic, somebody else who teaches the same topic would teach it completely differently. And so, you know, there is no one size fits all here. What works for one family won't work for another family. Having a routine that I've got on my fridge actually would be the completely wrong setup for somebody else who's got kids that, you know, whose their day doesn't, you know, sync with that kind of approach. I think that's probably quite hard actually, because you might not even know as a family, no matter how old your kids are, you might not know what your natural rhythms are because you've never really had to do this before. And we've never been in this. I mean, I've certainly never been in this sort of situation before. And I'm not really including summer holidays because I've always had those with my children as a teacher. And it is about finding your natural rhythm and your natural groove and working out, you know, I suppose in a way when your kids are going to be at home and not at school, what their natural rhythm and their natural groove is. Like when do they have their moments where they clearly aren't going to do anything and there's no point trying, and when are they going to be at their most compliant and when you can do stuff, and accepting that, you know, a schedule might say have lunch at 12, but actually, you know, lunch for your family works at 1:30, 2 o'clock. Well, fine. Are you going to have snack time a bit later? Yes, we are. We're also going to have 2 snack time. You know, whatever it is that creates that. And I think perhaps, and I'm in my first week here of self-isolation. Last week was a completely normal week at work for me, so to speak, until this happened. And I think that I am very much on a learning curve myself personally about, and my husband is as well. You know, we've not been in a partnership in this situation before. So what I'd say is that parents that are worried about it should absolutely cut themselves some slack, because it's an opportunity to work out what kind of family you are and what kind of things you really, really like to do and what things you can totally park and leave, because the content on the group is overwhelming. Like it's overwhelming. I mean, lockdown would have to be until...
So it's 350,000 ideas per person.
I mean, I'd have to be in lockdown till about 2025 to get through them all. There's no way, and I'm not suggesting that Boris is listening, but it's exactly that. Having the wealth of resources, hopefully, it is a bit overwhelming, but hopefully, it actually helps people to pick and mix or cherry pick only the ones that they like and curate their own sort of little mini schedules that work for them, because this is going to be so personal. You know, being at home or, you know, in the confines of a different environment is such a personal experience, and I just hope that parents don't judge themselves or take themselves too seriously or think of themselves as kind of taking on the role of the school. Even if the school is sending lots of things home, I still, as an educator, don't think that it's a parent's role to keep that up. And I hope that this can be seen and will be seen in the future when we do look back on this. We can look at it as something that enabled us to do something positive at home, positive with our children. Create basically the cheesy American thing. Oh, we're creating memories, but actually, you know, we're absolutely creating memories. And
do you remember the time I almost killed you because I was like 17 day into quarantine? Like, do you remember that day?
Oh gosh.
I'm joking. I'm really joking. Yes, beautiful ones. That don't involve forks or knives or anything in that matter.
Well, we've had some interesting posts from parents, let me tell you, on the group that haven't quite made it through the filter, but that have been I'm not sure this is appropriate, but, and then they have launched into, how can I, my husband, my child, there was one very funny one that said, it's day one, and both of my children are already on internal and external exclusion. They're going to be expelled from this school. They've been kicked out of the classroom for fighting. And I just thought, that is what we need to hear, because actually I think we've all probably been there, and it like all things like this, it will pass, and there will be a new normal, I suppose. But yeah, like
mothers and fathers might have less hair by the time they come out of this one.
Less hair and more wrinkles, definitely. And also,
deliver than they did at the beginning.
Absolutely, and all the people that we rely on to sort of keep us looking the way that we might do, or the hairdresser.
No, the hairs. That's a big one for me. Like, I'm seriously like, oh dear.
I am on the same page with you. This is not completely natural, and I really hope that I'm, when I'm doing my lives in a few weeks' time, if it's still going by then, that I've got a solution to this. Because the struggle is real.
It's real. I know. I was thinking, Leo will end up looking like a hippie. I'm gonna have to give him braids by the end of this.
I think that would be great, though. That would be reflective of your little time together. I mean, my 1.5-year-old looks like Stig of the Dump today, but nobody's looking. So she's got curls all in her face, and she's put about 3 different dressing up outfits on as her clothes. That's fine. She's just expressing herself.
Yeah, so, totally. Yeah. I love what you said about finding your own rhythm as a household. I think that's so key and so important, because you can't expect everybody to follow the same rhythm. You can't expect everybody to resonate, to do the same thing or another. Like Leo and I love doing Lego together. So that's something that I know that I love to do with my son. I'm really keen on Lego, always have been. It's just one of those things that I love to do and he loves to do. But other kids might not like it. Other kids want to, dance and move more. So there's a sense that there is a natural rhythm. There's also propensity for certain things and other things you like, maybe don't like. Leo also likes monster trucks, as he's right here telling you that. Because he wants to buy more. But that's a definite no-no for now. Because he only has 3. As if 3 is way too little. And so, there's an element that I love that, and to really listen to that rhythm that's inside of everybody, but also as a unit and as a family. And that's what I'm really taking away from this conversation today. And thank you for that, because it's something that I hadn't really sort of kind of had it given, that's so key. So it is really about picking and choosing what works for you, and a massive experiment, right? None of us have been in this situation before, really.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it. I would call this
it doesn't work. What doesn't work? If that doesn't work, okay. Well, what might do? Oh, well, that works. Well, that worked for today. It didn't necessarily work for tomorrow. Or for yesterday, depending on the moods that they're in. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, but what I do see, and I really want to go back to how we started this conversation off, is when you said it, you hit the nail on the head, that the answers are all inside. They are. And as parents that gave birth to these amazing human beings, how can they not be the answers there? Like, we are interconnected so beautifully, that there is a greater wisdom driving this bus, and that we do have all the answers inside of us. So I love that. I love the fact that you brought that up.
Well, I think it's true. I really do. And I have to say to anyone that is listening, I don't think that we've found that just yet either. I think that's probably more of a journey than it is something that you sort of should figure out by day 5 or day 10 or day 15. And I always think, and I say this to my students at school, like, if you were stuck on a desert island, what would you do if? And then I give them scenarios to kind of force them to think. And I think, what would I do with my kids if I was stuck on a desert island, if I didn't have these things? And I'm fairly certain that my answer wouldn't be, I would just panic and tell them to go swim in the sea for hours. I think my answer would probably say, well, actually, after I had a mild, big intake of breath, I think you would have to come up with something, because out of necessity, we have to do things, and we're kind of without any knowledge on it. We are built to protect our kids. And if protecting our kids means, keeping them happy and keeping them entertained, we kind of will find a way to do that. And it might be that even that we've forgotten because we're busy and we're working, or we're sidetracked, or we've got lots of kind of tabs open physically or mentally or whatever. And going back to just cleaning the slate, having an empty blank canvas to fill is it's not actually that daunting. Perhaps it's just that we're not used to it. And when we do get used to it, I'm sure there's lots of homeschoolers out there who say, what are you worrying about? But when we do get used to it, we sort of,
I do this every day.
Yeah, and also we'll probably, I don't know how we'll obviously emerge from all of this victorious, I'm sure we will, but we might actually emerge from all of this and say, how on earth are we going to fit school in? How are we going to fit our jobs back in? How are we going to fit in shopping? How are we going to fit in all those things that we were doing before? Because we've been so busy doing all this other interesting stuff.
I'm secretly enjoying it. So I'm one of those... I'm enjoying because I'm not going to school. I'm enjoying that. Yeah, Leo's in the background saying that he really enjoys not going to school. I'm one of those secret quarantine likers, because it means I don't have to rush anywhere. I don't have to be anywhere necessarily. Like, I don't have to get in the car, and it's just beautiful for me personally. And it's funny because I've got a group called The Breathing Space, and one of the mums said in there, she was just joking and saying, my challenge is keeping quiet about the fact that I'm really enjoying this.
Oh, bless. Well, good for her for acknowledging it, because, that must be quite liberating. When else do we get told to do this? And, there's lots of people out there that, there's a part of us all probably that's quite introverted, and we crave quiet time, we crave downtime, we crave not being busy. We love it cancelling a plan sometimes is a lovely thing to do. Having a free weekend is a lovely thing to do. So these are the things very often in life we kind of yearn for. And I think, the quantity of it on a plate is what's a bit daunting. But actually, the spin is obviously this is something that in another life is what we want. It's what we'd quite like. It's the time to make those things happen with our kids that we just never normally do. So I think that's lovely that lady said that, because I think if it's true and you feel it, then it has real power. Yeah.
Because you can sit back in that. It's interesting, isn't it? Be careful what you wish for.
Absolutely.
Maybe we were all wishing this on some level, to just stay home. Not under the circumstances. I get that.
Yeah.
It's a crazy human experiment, if you think about it. I don't know if you've seen a post where the canals in Venice are now clean again, and there are swans and dolphins swimming in the waters because the waters are no longer polluted. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps every time I think about it, because the knock-on effect on this, no many cars on the road, pollution is going to drop massively. This is a huge, huge global, Earth detox.
Yes, that's a great way of explaining it. It is, and the fact that it's enforced in the way that it is being enforced, based on all the expert advice and so on, it takes the thinking out of it. It doesn't matter whether you're for or against something, or whether you're politically left or right, or whether whether you think climate change is one big hoax or whether you think it's like the most pressing issue, that's all been swept off the table, because this is what we're doing to preserve the future of, you know, humanity and save lives and look after our economies and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of one of those moments in life where you realize what it's all about. You know, if you have a big life moment, good or bad, and you reflect and say, well, what was I worrying about, all those little things? In a way, maybe it's a bit like that. It's the world kind of saying, you know what, I'm pretty powerful too, so sit back and listen, because look what can happen.
Totally.
And it's very humbling. It's very humbling, and actually what it has shown, I was initially a bit worried about the effect on sort of humanity and the sort of, how are people going to respond? Are they going to panic? And is it going to turn into one big mental health crisis? Which it hasn't, so far as I can see. There's a lot of support. It's the opposite. Communities seem to be coming together in ways that they never have. I mean, even in my local area, with the people, the communities that I'm part of, the school community, religious communities, geographical communities, the kind of ideas and support that are out there has restored my faith entirely at a time where I think I was losing quite a lot of that faith. I felt quite disenfranchised. I felt quite disempowered. I wasn't feeling very happy about the political situation. And I'm not saying that this is going to make me feel much better about it, but I certainly feel much more connected with other people who have reminded me of actually what is really important. So yeah, there's definitely some super massive life lessons going on here that, you know, on a personal and on a bigger level, sort of global level, hopefully will benefit us. But I love that about the canals.
I know, and I research on that, because that's the only bit I've seen, but I'm assuming that the seas, the sea and God knows what else will be benefiting from this. And you know, just like we have to have some sort of like we can do fasting, and that really gives our organs a rest. This is the same sort of thing. And so, you know, gosh, with all the fires that have happened over in Brazil, and in South America and so forth, God knows, who knows, that this might be an incredible opportunity for those forests to just take a break, and for them to just, you know, kind of have a bit of a rest from what's been going on. And so, but yeah, I mean, amazing. Before we go, are there any other sort of quick tips, tricks, you know, anything else that you want to share before we go and tend to our children again?
I think one of the things that I would say is always that having a plan, and it doesn't really matter what your plan is, having a plan is better than having no plan at all. And so for any parents that are feeling a little bit unsure despite everything, just generating a few good ideas is really, I think, all that is needed. And I really hope that people can make this time enjoyable. You know, we can liken it to other, I'm a history teacher, and, you know, we can liken it to, like, you know, the Blitz, having to stay inside, and, you know, but it isn't like that. We're connected globally and digitally, and we've got things at our fingertips that actually, you know, might actually open the world up to us more. Ironically, maybe we're going to see more of the world through being in our houses than we would if we went about our ordinary lives. So and
the other thing that I'm kind of seeing in this is the opportunity to connect with people we otherwise wouldn't have done. I mean, I would never have met you.
That's true. No, we would not have met. We wouldn't be having this amazing conversation right now, which is so exciting.
Well, you didn't know I existed either. And so, isn't this amazing, though? But there are people in the group, for example, that suddenly go, well, I didn't know you existed, but now I know you existed because you do this amazing yoga thing in the morning.
Absolutely. It's lovely. It's really lovely.
Oh, yeah, there's an element of that to me that I find really exciting, is meeting people I wouldn't have otherwise met, because the situation has given rise to that. So there's something to be really grateful for in that respect. So I'm really grateful to having met you and to have had this really beautiful conversation around what we can do keep a little bit saner during this time.
Absolutely. Well, I've said some things in our little chat today that I definitely haven't said out loud before, but now that I have, I'm going to go away and think about them myself, because it's always useful to talk things out sort of publicly. But no, it's really lovely. So we've both widened our worlds by being at home today.
We have indeed. And I think there's something to be said for having a restriction. I remember a mentor of mine saying to me, that there was a band, there were two musicians who used to restrict their creativity. And in so doing so, they would explode their creativity. So like they would have to do songs in A minor only, or they would have to leave out a certain note. And so what would happen is it would take their creativity to the next level because they put in restrictions.
That's really clever. And so you're learning to be resourceful by what?
Bingo, right? And so you can't go out of your home. What else can you do?
Sure.
There's an opportunity here for us that want to serve the planet, that for us to be able to do that and really be of service, because there's a lot of people that are struggling. So just as much as there is fear, there's also opportunity that comes with that. So, and a huge amount of creativity that come with it too. In fact, what I've seen is, and you used to go back to this humbling piece, mega famous artists just doing sessions in their back gardens or, their living rooms or their warehouses, just, jamming.
Exactly. We're all the same after all.
Here we are. And even Michael Bublé shared. He was terrified. It's actually really funny seeing these amazing megastars just getting behind the camera and sharing something, and they're going,
I haven't seen that. I have to make sure.
Really this is the first time I've done something like this, and I'm not quite sure about it. But it's really cool, as in humbling, as in it really levels the playing field for everybody. So wonderful. So Claire, if somebody wants to go and join the group, I guess what we'll do, we'll just put it in the show notes so they can just join the group. Yeah,
sure.
Anything else? Any other resources that you'd like to point them to? Or
well, not really, just have a browse, pop in, come back. Don't feel you have to do everything. Say hello, watch the lives, and feel reassured that the size of the community that we have in the group just reflects that everyone is on the same, I was going to say everyone's on the same page. Well, it is a Facebook page, but everyone's on the same page kind of mentally and physically, and we're in this together.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Claire. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much for hosting.
And there we have it, another beautiful episode of The Joy of Being. Now, if you got something from this and you know of somebody that could really, really do with a boost of positivity and joy, then please do share the episode with them. It's amazing the ripple effect that these episodes can have on others. Failing that, if you'd like to join a different conversation around what's going on in these uncertain times, then please do join the Facebook group, The Breathing Space for Hardworking Mamas. You can find us at facebook.com/groups/The Breathing Space for Mums in Business.